My guest today, I'm so wonderfully excited to have him on the show. He's a voice actor, a voice director, an activist, and has been performing on television and cartoons and video games and just awesome since the mid-50s, I think. Please welcome Michael Bell. How are you today, Michael?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. What, mid-50s? I don't think 50s. Let me, hold on a second. 38, 48, 58, 68, probably 60, somewhere in the 60s. 50s, I would have been in my 20s and still in the Army.
I see. I just kind of assumed you'd been doing it. Well, not assumed. I was reading stuff. The stuff must be wrong.
Yeah, there's about 3 things that are early in IMDb and that I've attempted to correct several times, and I finally just threw my hands up and said they're not paying any attention to me. So,
I see.
Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I'm paying attention. I'm such a fan. I'm
counts.
sure you get this all the time, but I grew up listening to you.
Nope, you never grew up.
Oh, thank you. I think.
Yeah.
So you are a phenomenal actor, and my wife and I were discussing questions that I should and should not ask.
Okay, well, follow your instincts.
One of the ones she came up with, she wanted the answer to, is she wanted to know what your most complicated role was.
The most complicated. You know, it's interesting. It probably would have been something that. Okay, complicated. I did. Well, not complicated wouldn't be the word. That was throat ripping more than likely, because there's really nothing that terribly complicated in voice animation. And you do what you do, and you're either prepared for it or you're not. But I did a voice in Inhumanoids. I was doing a series called Inhumanoids, and I had a couple of characters that were interesting, and then they give you a third character. At that time, when I was doing VO for those shows, you were allowed to do 3 characters, 2 majors and a minor. And the minor character turned out to be somewhat of a major since he had a lot to do, but he was like a giant phlegm ball.
That sounds fun.
It was. I spent a lot of time hocking up as I talked. It was very bizarre. I think I remember that.
Thank you. You're.
Yeah. It's hard to give voice to mucus.
Yeah, right. I can't even imagine. So my favorite role of yours, maybe not favorite, but the one I'm most familiar with is Raziel from the Legacy of Kain series.
The game, yeah, sure.
And it occurs to me that you sound very much like that right now, but you sound a bit more Shakespearean, I guess.
Yes, they wanted an English dialect. They wanted British, so I was fortunate since there were so many Brits around, and there still are even more now in Hollywood, that I was fortunate to get it, and to work with Simon Templeton, who is really British.
Yeah, so Simon, I'm a big fan. He is exceedingly British. Yeah.
Well, really talented guy too, so I had to be on my mark. And the funny thing about that series of the games was Amy Hennig, who was the producer. We became very friendly. She was a dynamite lady, and she gave me the PlayStation and the game when it came out, and a PlayStation to play it. And I remember taking it to my room and trying to play it, and I'm not really computer savvy, particularly computer savvy, so I tried as best I could. After about a short time, I felt my daughter came in the room. She said, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to get Raziel on this cliff. It's like a rock that he has to climb to get to the second level." And she said, "You've been here for 4 hours." I said, 4 hours? And I'm still at the beginning of the game and I can't get him up on a freaking cliff? So I said, okay, this is not for me. Because I was trying to get to the filming of it. I wanted to see what it was I did, and I couldn't get to that until you got the character to do what you needed it to do in battle, whomever you needed to battle. So I just shut the game and closed it up and reboxed the PlayStation and gave it to some kid who didn't have the bucks to buy it and said, "Here's my gift."
That's really cool, though. Have you seen it since?
Yeah, I can Google it now. Of course, on YouTube, everybody has dumped it on YouTube, so I can see segments of it. I don't see all of it, but I've seen the segments when I'm brought before Kane, and he rips my wings off.
Oh yeah.
And sends me to Washington D.C. to meet with Trump.
For what it's worth, early I'm a big gamer, and the PS1. Soul Reaver 1 came out in a period where we were still exploring 3D mechanics as far as graphics and camera control.
Yeah.
So Soul Reaver 1, I mean, Amy, no disrespect, quite the contrary, actually. She's on my top 5 list of favorite people I would love to have on this show. She's fantastic. But the camera controls in early PS1 games were kind of screwy. And that's nobody's fault. It's just where the technology was. So you can probably take some comfort in that if you want.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I do know that when I do conventions, I get a fair amount of fans coming up and saying, "Oh my God, it's you!" And you get that for the Smurfs, and you get that for Rugrats, or mostly for Transformers or GI Joe. But when the fans come up that are Raziel fans from Defiance of Kane or any of Soul Reaver, they just are knocked out by the fact that I'm still alive.
That's awesome. You're really known for this youthful sound you have. Do you do any vocal exercises or anything to maintain that?
No, I think probably because the important parts of my body haven't dropped yet.
I see. That's funny. He's a ghoul, a series of people from Rugrats, several giant metal robots, and a comedian. Nice. And an activist. You're involved with SAG-AFTRA, is that right?
I was on the board for a number of years, and of course it's my union, and I will fight for the membership of my union, and there's that. And I'm also an animal welfare activist. I work on legislation if I can, and assist where I can to help raise funds for cats, dogs, turtles, whatever, and do reach outs to my friends to raise funds for organizations that are trying to help animals, wildlife, domestic, whatever. So yeah, I keep busy.
I bet. I was reading about that, but now since right out of the gate I got something wrong, now I'm going to second guess everything I ask you.
No, not wrong at all. Where are you calling from?
New Hampshire.
You're New Hampshire, okay. Has Love and Bananas, my daughter's film, hit there yet?
If it has, I wouldn't be the guy to ask. I almost never go to the theater. I almost never look at the theater.
Okay, this is movies.
Right.
Movie. You don't go to the movies. Okay, well, her film. Do you get Stars out there?
Yeah. I have the internet. Okay. I watch stuff on the on TV, I guess, all the time. But
July 30th, my birthday.
Oh, that's right around the corner. Happy birthday!
Thank you. Her film Love and Bananas will be premiering.
I'll keep my eyes open for it. My birthday's the 24th. Call it a birthday present.
Oh, you're a Leo.
I am,
okay.
Yes.
Cool. So you're a couple of days away. That's great. So how old are you going to be?
30.
Tell me. 30.
I know.
Well, I'm going to be close to that. If you add 50 more to that, I'll be close to that.
When I set out to make this show a year and a half ago, there were a very short list, a very specific short list of people that I moved to the top of it. Out of the people I knew I wanted to interview, there was a much smaller group of them that were over a certain age that I felt the need to talk to as soon as I felt like I had the chops to do it, for fear that they would leave us.
They wouldn't be around.
Right, that they wouldn't be around.
Yeah. Okay,
and
I got it.
It's always a difficult thing to bring up because no one wants to be reminded that they're older.
I don't mind. What the hell? Are you kidding me? Listen, I always say a man who doesn't have garbage isn't eating.
Yeah,
so,
right.
The garbage being age, and I ate.
My mother-in-law looks at it like this: it's better than the alternative.
Yes, that's what George Burns used to say. And he said, "What's it like being?" I think he was 90. He said, "It's fine if you don't consider the alternative."
Nice, right? And you earn every year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Stan Lee is older, and oh man, I hope I get to talk to him before he leaves us.
Okay, he was. I met him I met him at lunch and met him someplace else, and we sat and we talked because I did The Incredible Hulk, the early animated series. It was Bruce Banner. So I went to introduce myself to him, and I mean, I could have said I was a vase with flowers in it as much as he cared. But it was interesting as we talked. And a couple of months later, I was getting out of my car over at a local market, and a family of several people were getting out of their car, and the father looks up and says, "Excuse me, are you Stan Lee?"
That's awesome.
I said, "Are you out of your bleeping mind? Do I look 95 years old?" I was wearing my baseball cap and sunglasses, and he started laughing. Said, "I don't know, you just look like Stan Lee." I said, "Jesus, you just ruined my week, man."
From my interpretation of Stan Lee, at least the interviews I've seen him in, for his age, he's incredibly young. So perhaps that was
he's cool. No, he's a cool guy to talk to. But come on, he looks a hell of a lot older than I do. For fear of sounding, for fear of ruling out a future guest, yeah, he totally does. Yeah, no, he looks old. But in the meantime, he just had some sad stuff happen.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of ugly, which is Jesus.
Thank
God, I got a family to look after me. So
you're I watched a couple of interviews with you in them. I guess you can call it doing homework if you want. So no one ever asks you about Opus the Penguin.
Everybody looks at me as if I grew another nose when they say, "What was your favorite character?" When I say Chaz in Rugrats was one of my faves, and because he was written so beautifully in Rugrats, and Grandpa Boris, of course, written beautifully. And then I said, and Opus in A Wish for Wings That Work, and they all stare at me like, like I've come from another planet. I said, A Wish for Wings That Work is an extraordinary television show. It was a pilot we did for Steven Spielberg that he chose not to continue as a series, and I guess in favor of Family Dog, which he thought would go better, and it didn't. It died. This would have lasted. I'm sure that A Wish for Wings at Work would have lasted.
I'm going to come perfectly clear here. I've been doing various reading about you and watching stuff and catching up and getting all synced up for the interview for the last couple of days. And during those, I had never heard of A Wish for Wings That Work until 2 days ago. When you mentioned it in one of your interviews, I immediately went on YouTube and watched it. It's brilliant.
Isn't it great?
It's single-handedly my favorite Christmas show ever. It's so well put together.
It's just, and I wish I'd worked with Robin, rest his soul, or Dustin, who's still alive, but it would have been fun to work together, but we all worked singularly. And I got to tell you the story behind that. When they first were casting for Opus, I wasn't called in. And we got noticed from Danny, who was who actually played Brainy in the Smurfs. Was now Danny was a casting director. Danny said, they said we want to see everybody in town here, everybody in town, all the guys except for Michael Bell and Frank Welker, because they do too much and they're new. And so they got a whole bunch of people, and they finally got a guy, and they settled for him. And then within a short period of time, after, I think, doing a couple of sessions, they ousted him. And then they just called Frank Welker and said, come on in and do it. And Frank did it, and they finished the show. And then they played it, and they said, no, that isn't exactly what we wanted. And so they said, let's bring Michael Bell in, and somebody else. They brought me, I don't know who the other guy is. And I did it. I read for it. And then they Spielberg played it for his son. And he said to his son, which of these two voices sounds like Opus to you? And he said, this one. And it was me. So because of Spielberg's son, who was a kid at the time, I got the job.
That's really cool. It's a great, great movie. I can't believe I've never seen it before. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and you tell everybody it's a combination of live action and animation. The live action being from Shangri-La, the film with Ronald Colman and Margot, little sections, little pieces of it. It's just so clever. It's such a bright show and so hip and current.
It's so well made. There's stuff in it for little kids, right? It's a cartoon for starters, but there's also more intelligent bits. It's a classic cartoon that has stuff for the kids and the parents in it.
And the parents, I just don't understand. I know they drag it out every now and then and play it, but I just think it should have been a heck of a lot bigger than it was, and I think they downplayed it, which I've learned in Hollywood happens. If they don't throw money behind the project, They just let it skim along on its own without any prompting.
And see how it does, and it probably won't do as well as things backed with money, right?
Never does as well without stuff being backed by money. Yeah.
Well, for what it's worth, I'm sorry to hear that. That's a fantastic. Oh man, I immediately shoved it up everybody I know's nose. I was like, "You got to watch this. Look at this. You're at home right now. I know you are. You got to watch this."
Oh, great! I love it. That's great. Prompt it out. That's super.
So, well, I don't want to ask you what your favorite character is because I saw an interview years ago with Stan Lee, I think, and somebody had asked him, and he kind of deflected the answer like it was having to choose between his children, and I'd never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it is to some degree. I mean, there's some stuff you do, but every now and then something special comes along, and then another special, then another special. It's kind of hard to say, no, you aren't my favorite cat. You were just one of the cats I had.
Right.
And that's a little unfair, so.
So I'm going to ask you what your favorite word or sound is instead. I ask everybody that. And as a guy who does voice acting, this ought to be good. I totally want to hear the answer.
My favorite sound. I think it would be hysterical laughter.
Yeah? Cool.
Yeah, wacky laughter would be my favorite. Did for Rugrats was a character called Mr. Mucklehoney, who laughed at everything. One of those jolly guys, big, heavy set guys who laughs at everything and hardly can get a word out without laughing. And I had to do a whole show of that, and that was great fun.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny, Rugrats was on TV and airing, not reruns. It was actually on TV. I'm the age for it, but I was the age that it was aimed at when I was, when it was on TV, and
Sure.
But I didn't watch it until a couple of months ago, and I still like cartoons at 29, and it's fantastic, and I can't believe I didn't see the value in it as a kid.
It's such a hip show. It is so hip. I mean, the toilet training show, all the stuff that we all went through. If you swallow a watermelon seed, will a watermelon grow in your tummy? Yeah. And the whole show about that was hysterical. I mean, it was, and the day that I, as Chucky's dad, Chaz, had to explain to Chucky why he didn't have a mother. Everyone else had a mother on Mother's Day, why he didn't have a mother. And it was the word came down that it was one of the best shows ever, and kids were crying. You can make a kid cry watching a cartoon show. It's a good show.
Yeah, you really got something. Yeah. There's and I recently discovered that you were Reptar and like 6 other characters. That's amazing. How do you voice a dinosaur?
Well, I would go.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I would have Reptar with Spike.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine my chagrin when they gave Bruce Willis the voice of Spike for the movie.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
And when they interviewed me, and they said when I did the film, they interviewed several of us. They said, "How's it like working with Bruce Willis?" And a couple of my other fellow actors, always really nice, and we get along. And it was all bullshit because no one even really met him. And so they said to me, "And so how's it like working with Bruce Willis?" I said, "Well, first of all, I didn't meet him. Second of all, what the hell do we need Bruce Willis for? I was the voice of Spike. What do you need What do you need a star to come in to do the voice of Spike, or any voice? What do you need stars at all for a show that's so solid and successful without one star ever being in it?" So they said, "Okay, thank you." I never got on the interview. And then you never heard me.
Right.
You never saw me interviewed. It was very funny.
This is wonderful. It's not every day I get to interview somebody who is directly honest as you are. Like you just tell, and this is really refreshing and wonderful.
Oh, good.
And I knew this interview was going to be good because you're you, but it's even better than I thought it was going to be.
Well, my uninterrupted thought. You don't have an unexpressed thought, she said. So just be careful because you're on radio. It's fine.
Yeah. I've interviewed a couple people and asked them ahead of time if I can talk about race and religion and whatever with them, because you don't just want to drop that on somebody. And they've been like, "Yeah, sure. If you're okay with offending a few people, you knock yourself out."
Yeah, sure, exactly.
So, and I was like, if they're if you're easily offended, you may not want to listen to my show. Most of them are pretty kosher, but some of them are, oh, look, a Jewish term. I didn't mean to do that at all. That was an accident. My apologies.
Kosher's not Jewish anymore.
It's not?
No, it's part of the semantics. It's along with schmuck.
I see.
There's some words now that have now been accepted as just a standard English fare.
I see. I'm familiar with schmuck, both meanings of it.
Yeah, schmuck, putz.
Schmuck, putz, schlemiel, yeah.
Yeah, schlemiel, whatever.
Yeah. I usually tell people, I say that I know the same 8 words of Yiddish everybody knows.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling, though, that Michael Madsen will never say oi. So I'm not sure if that's one of them.
I read this book not that long ago. It was the enunciation of the oi, I think it was called, and it was an argument for how, depending on how you enunciate, if you can enunciate the word oi well enough, that is the only word you need to communicate with the rest of the world.
Well, when I was in the Army, it was so funny because the Southerners referred to, because when I was raised, the word was tuchus.
Mm-hmm.
It was a tuchus. When I was in the Army, it was your tokus. And I had no idea what the hell they were talking about.
Okay, I've never heard it pronounced like that either.
I'd like to get you right in your tokus. And my what?
We got you in the butt. Oh, why didn't you say so?
There you go, Dad. Why didn't you say that? Yeah, tokus.
So,
smuck. Somebody was a smuck. I said, a smuck? What the hell's a smuck?
A moron. Oh, well, why didn't you say so?
Sure.
Right.
Funny.
So what is I can't imagine the number of times you've been interviewed and asked questions and poked at and probed and having your time taken. So what is the question that no one's asking that you wish someone would?
Well, they've asked me so much. The one question they asked me I wish they wouldn't ask me is, what show would you have wanted to do the role you didn't get? Yeah, you really want to talk about that. And the one question they always ask me, which is such a dumb question, is how did you feel when they found out they were going to kill you as Prowl? How did it feel when they were going to kill you as Prowl? I said, well, I loved it. What a great idea. That means I won't be in the show anymore. That I'll be spending money on the show, and I won't get to work with all these actors. That's a treat. Thanks for asking that question.
Yeah.
Dumbest question in the world. How do you feel about that?
If it makes you feel better, I did not plan on asking you that, and it's certainly not going on the list now.
Good. I appreciate that.
Oh man, yeah, no, I and perhaps that's because I'm just old enough to have missed the Transformers bubble.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I was born in '88, so I just missed that by.
So you missed G.I. Joe as well.
I did, yes. I just started watching it the other day, simply because you're in it, and I'm a big fan.
I see. Okay, cool. That's cool.
I hunt down pretty much anything that you, Simon Templeman, or Patrick Warburton are in.
Oh, Patrick. I don't know Patrick. That's interesting. You mentioned a name I don't know. I just don't know a lot of people. So.
Have you seen Rules of Engagement? The sitcom?
I don't think so. No, I haven't.
You seen Emperor's New Groove, the cartoon?
Seen what now?
Emperor's New Groove. It's an older cartoon. Guy gets turned into a llama. No?
I've never watched cartoons.
Really? There's a world of awesome in cartoons.
Yeah, I haven't watched. I think I watched cartoons when I was a little kid. I'd watched Tom and Jerry, or I watched Mel Blanc stuff. Bugs Bunny, because you went to the movies and you saw it. I didn't watch it on television because when I was a kid, we didn't have television until I was 13 or 14.
Speaking of cartoons, you were Quacker Jack.
Yeah.
How was that? To go?
That was fun.
Yeah, to play a lunatic jester.
That was a gas, and it was interesting because when you get a role, sometimes you're doing a show with other characters who are just being introduced. So Dan Castellaneta and myself, and I might have been Michael Goff, were in the same show, and then Ginny McSwain, who directed it, said, "Okay, I'd like you to play this character." And then where does your character come into the script? Is your character first or second or third speaking character into the script? Then your character comes first. So whatever character you've come up with, it becomes indelible. So I was thinking, when I looked at Quackerjack, I thought, well, I'll do kind of a Kirk Douglas thing. I'll do one of these kind of, whatever, cracking thing, and that'll be great fun. And then Dan, who was doing his character, his character spoke first, and that was the character he chose to do. He chose to do a takeoff on Kirk Douglas. And I thought, you stole my character.
Well, crap, now I have to do something else, right?
Now I got to do something else. So I thought, okay, let's just make him really berserk, really nutso, and go from one level of vocal level to another. So it's that this. So I'll have a lot of variation in the character, and that was fun. That was a gas to do.
Did you also do the voice of the little banana thing on his hand?
I don't recall. I may have.
I think
sure.
So. I'm pretty sure.
I probably did. Yeah, I probably did.
He had like a ventriloquist puppet that was always,
right.
And it was done up so that it was kind of part of his psyche. He talked through it.
That I know, but I'm trying to remember because it's probably easier for me to have done it than for Ginny to have cast anybody else into it. Because we often did stuff like that. If we played a two-headed character, we wound up playing two heads,
right,
or something to that effect. I think the only time I didn't do something was when we did Tomax and the twins in G.I. Joe, Zaymon and Tomax. I think there was two different characters.
I was telling a couple of my friends, and I try not to do that. I just couldn't contain my excitement. I try not to tell people about a show until it's already recorded, because stuff comes up. But I couldn't contain myself when I told a couple of my friends that I was going to interview Michael Bell, and they were like, "Who?" And I just started rattling off roles until they went, "Oh, wait, you're going to interview that guy?" I went, "Yeah."
That guy. That'll be on my tombstone. Here lies that guy.
Right? Yeah, they were like, "Who?" And then I rattled stuff off, and I got to Sideswipe, and one of my friends was like, "Wait, like the Transformer Sideswipe." Yes. Yeah. No, the other Sideswipe, the talking garbage can. Yes, Sideswipe. Oh, yeah, and it's amazing to me how many people know you and don't know that you're you.
It's really interesting. As I tell you, I do conventions. I travel around like many of the other voiceover people over that period that do conventions, and people will come by the table and say, "Oh wow, wait, you drew these?" Because all the photos are out. I said, "No, I was the voice of these characters." Wait, you were the voice of Brainstorm? Yeah, but Brainstorm from Transformers? Yeah. From the 80s? Yeah. And you were also Prowl? Yeah. Wait, and you were also, you did this, you did this, and you did that? And I said, yeah. And then they look up at the poster, and it's got all the characters on my poster. A fan had made me a really, really beautiful poster. And they said, you did all those characters? And I said, yeah, wait, you're Michael Bell? And I said, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a name tag. It's Comic-Con. Yeah.
Well, and I have to tell you, you probably have to bleep this out because it's fact, but I had somebody come by the table once, and he walked around, he looked at all the photos and all the characters I'd done over the years, right up to General Dodonna on Star Trek Rebels. And he looked at all the characters, all the way dating way back, some of the on-camera stuff. He said, I don't think I've ever seen any of these. I said, then get the fuck away from my table.
Well, then what are you doing here? Right.
Yeah. Get away from my table. Then get away from here. I don't want you here. Go to her table. Go to Sailor Moon. Leave me alone.
Go to Sailor Moon. Oh, man. This has been so much fun. We are about out of time on the half hour, though. And I would love to keep talking. I'm sure you have things you want to do.
No problem.
So I'd love to close on one last question. Is there a question I should have asked that I didn't?
No, actually, other than what have you got for the future, then you would have heard silence. You would have heard nothing happening that I know of. That would be the one question that people say, what's happening? Because it's all a secret. You never know.
That's why I didn't ask. I was going to ask, but I assumed that someone as mighty impressive as Michael Bell can't be telling anybody.
Yeah, whatever. But in the meantime, if you guys please let everybody know about Love and Bananas.
I certainly will.
It's going to be on Stars and on iTunes You can download it. You can buy it, and it's a fabulous documentary that my daughter Ashley Bell wrote, produced, and directed.
Wow.
Got 4 stars. It's in TV Guide. 4 stars, pick of the week.
Fantastic. You're a whole family of actors.
Yeah, we sure are. And my wife, of course, was I was the Incredible Hulk, and she was She-Hulk.
I didn't know that. I knew you were the Hulk. I did not know she was She-Hulk.
Yeah.
The early 90s when cartoon themes were so good they were better than what was on the radio.
Yeah, it's... Uh-oh.
Oh? Maybe not all the time.
No, not all the time. Not all the time. We're all radio babies. Those of us that started out early were radio babies, so...
Yeah, I suppose that was a blanket statement, and that's not entirely fair. My apologies.
Yeah, it's okay. Don't do it again.
You're right. Understood. So the show is over, and I'm going to cut it right there. But I had a question. I have a Patreon account where I go and people pay me for the show and that kind of thing. And I'd like to get an extra snippet from each guest for that. It's entirely optional. You don't have to. We did agree to a half hour.
Glad to do it. No problem.
Thank you so much. If I could kind of do whatever you want to do. I did have one request. If you would just, I don't know, say a couple of sentences of your various roles. Be your voice acting magic self for a minute. But if you'd rather do something else, it's up to you.
Sure. Okay, let's try. We're going to need another boat. We're going to need a bigger boat. As for Rugrats. Let's see. Trying to think of something from Duke. Duke's dialogue was, knowing is half the battle. Yo, Joe! Nice. And, I guess that's about it. I can't think beyond those characters.
That's totally fine. I just started watching G.I. Joe. I'd never seen it. I missed that bus. Right. Just too young to see that. But when I told a couple of my friends, most of them are either 10 years older or 10 years younger than me at the closest. And they were all like, all the older ones were like, wait. You're going to interview the G.I. Joe guy?
Yes.
So.
And if you get a chance, if you ever download the live action series Community, which was a very funny sitcom, there's one segment on Community where the main character gets hit in the head and goes into a coma, and when he has the coma, he goes into G.I. Joe land.
That's awesome.
And then they animate the rest of the show. So they had called my agent to say, we're going to feature the character of Duke, but it's years later. Mike has got to be in his, 70s at this point. Does he still sound like Duke?
You sure do.
So they said, we'll give him a call. And so she called me and she said, look, they're going to call you, so make sure that you're there for that. And I said, great, we'll do. And the guy calls, he said, yeah, can I speak to Michael Bell, please? And I knew it was the producer. And I said, 1 minute, Dad? And then I got on the phone and I went, hello? And he said, yeah, Michael Bell, please. I said, hey, this is Michael Bell. Said, but Michael Bell did the voice to do it. I said, yeah, this is Joe. What do you want? And it was just silence. I went, okay, yo, Joe, are you happy? And he went, oh, okay, got it. He started to laugh. He said, got it, okay, good deal. See you in the studio.
That's awesome. Do you connect with the people you worked on voiceover groups with?
Oh, sure. Every now and then I'll see Oppenheimer. I see Greg Berger a lot, and email and get emails from Frank Welker. Don't get to see Frank much. But, and I see B.J. Ward, who was Scarlett, and I every now and then run into Mary McDonald Lewis, who was Lady J. Yeah. That's
really cool. There's there's your age is apparent in the internet, right? As is most people's, right? Because you worked with Simon for a period of time, I wanted to point this out. I don't know if you know this, but his age isn't locked down on the internet anywhere.
Smart Simon.
And right, and I saw an interview where he discovered that, and then somebody told him that, and he thought that was funny. He didn't know. And then they asked him what his age was, and he said, perhaps you should have started with that, because I'm not going to ruin it now.
Yes. Smart guy.
It was really funny, and I thought you'd appreciate that.
Absolutely smart. Yeah, there's been a big push from Screen Actors Guild to try to get age deleted from IMDb. It's especially deleterious to women. actors.
Oh, yeah, I can't even imagine. I wanted to talk to you about that, but I got so wrapped up in talking to you, I ran out of time.
That's okay.
So this has been so much fun.
That's what they said. They said to me, well, we weren't sure, because I met the producer a couple of days ago on a convention. He said, oh, Mike, how you doing? I produced Community and blah, blah, blah. He said, oh, and I told him what had happened, and he laughed, and he said, yes. He said, I remember that. And we kind of talked about it, and I said, you guys have to figure something, because they're bringing Rugrats back.
Oh, are they? That's exciting.
26 more shows, new, not the old one. They're going to do 26 new shows and a movie at Paramount. So I said, I hope you guys can consider bringing the original cast back, including myself. I said, our asses have dropped, but our voices are pretty much the same.
I would ask, but we kind of addressed it. I'm not supposed to do that. So I won't do that.
Yeah, I'll send a photo.
Okay. Someday, I really hope to get Simon on the show. That would be cool. Yeah, he's something else. And I don't mean to detract from your greatness at all.
Not at all. No, listen, Simon's wonderful. He's really wonderful. He's a wonderful actor. And I've communicated with him occasionally. I've sent him an email on something or other, and we, very briefly. He's not one of my cronies because he didn't do voiceovers extensively, so we didn't run into each other a lot, other than Defiance of Cain and Soul Reaver.
Which I still think is some of the greatest voice acting I've ever heard as
wonderful stuff.
Shakespearean. So this has been so much fun.
It's been super. I appreciate the call. Thanks so much for the shout out.
Absolutely. Are you kidding? I assumed you were going to tell me no. I really did.
No, really? Oh, no. Why would I do that?
Well, because you're awesome, and this is the part where I try not to sound like a fanboy.
Let me see if I can hold this phone up so my wife can hear it. She just told me I had to help her with the dishes.
I see. Well, I'm not sure Michael has to do that. He's amazing.
That's right. Good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, have a great day, Michael.
You too. And hello to your wife.
Yeah, I'll tell her that. She's going to lose it. Have a great day. Thanks so much.
You too. Bye-bye.